Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by localmarketingsource.com. This update is taken from the Local Marketing Source Professional Development Program for local marketers.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source and bringing your weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's LMS member call is going to be Wednesday, February 19th at 4 p.m. Eastern. This week, we've got a few different things to cover with you. I've got some exciting news to be able to share on a few different things, and quite a bit going on in the Facebook group to talk about. Now, at the end of the call for LMS members, I am going to be discussing some of the stuff that's working in my agency right now, and it's some exciting news. Come across, well, a strategy is finally starting to come together to drive leads, and quite a few leads, quite a few qualified leads to your marketing agency for very low cost and not a lot of time invested into it. But nonetheless, this week's overview. First off, Google is sending warning to business owners. We're going to talk about that a little bit and what that warning is all about. Bright Local has done a really good study on local business websites, and we're going to learn what some of the factors are that consumers and customers are ultimately looking for. Yahoo, in the game of local search, has really beefed up some of their efforts. They've made some interesting partnerships that we're going to talk about. And Yellow Pages is back in the spotlight. You notice there's nothing that we're really talking about here with Google except the update. And then finally, for local business owners that are on the phone, I wanted to talk about a upcoming webinar that my agency is putting on. And actually, I'll share a little bit about that right now. That's going to be on Thursday, February 25th. As well for LMS students and as well as LMS fans if you want to get in and see how we put on some of these this webinar. We've got quite a few people signed up for it already. It's going to be a really active webinar for local businesses. The website address, I'm just going to put it into GoToWebinar right now, but it's going to be bit.ly/local biz, B-I-Z, webinar, all one word. So that's bit.ly/local biz webinar. It's going to be a content-packed webinar, 1 hour of pure content, and for the agency owners that are on the line, you'll get an understanding of how we disclose and discuss a whole variety of different strategies. And then maybe after the webinar, maybe next week, I'll break it apart and talk about why I did certain things and how I do certain things, and from a sales perspective. Obviously, and it's no secret that our objective is to earn the right to do business. We're not trying to sell anybody anything or push something down somebody's throat, but we want to earn the right to do business. Now, the LMS member Facebook group, if you haven't been in there, get in there. There is a lot going on. I want everybody, every student, to go through and read this. Eve started a good discussion on geo-exclusivity and how we look at that and how we handle that. Mike, he's become a little active. Mike is an interesting character. I like Mike Gelblicht a lot. And he opened up a discussion about wrong listings on Apple Maps. And Apple is really, well, I mean, Apple is the biggest company in America. And just different discussions about NAP issues and how to find, his Apple listings were wrong and where to find them, and what some of Apple's main sources are to get that. So go and check that out. But to get into an update, Google has been sending emails to business owners saying you've got 3 weeks to fix your Google Places listing. Now the implications are if they get these emails or you receive a warning in Google Webmaster Tools and you don't take action on this, you're going to lose your exposure on Google Maps. And you'll have to go through the rigorous claiming process again. Google is really trying to put efforts into cleaning up their database and having good, clean information and whatnot in there. So if you don't know if your clients have received an email, or if your local business, you're not too sure if you've received an email in regards to this, definitely log into Google Webmaster Tools for all of your Google accounts, all your clients, and determine if there's any warnings there, and then go and update that information. Now, I'd mentioned that Break Local, they've done a really good study. You may want to go check out this study. They did a pretty good job on it. It was good enough to be listed in searchengineland.com, which is a pretty prominent information website that's out there. And they looked at a whole variety of different factors that consumers ultimately are looking for on a website. Now, a lot of it's kind of obvious. You know, for example, you just put yourself into a buyer's shoes, and every time that you use either mobile or desktop searches to go and find a local business, what are you looking for? You know, you're looking for their location. You're looking for their phone number. Maybe you are investigating how much certain things cost, or product or service availability. Maybe a little bit of information about that product or service. So, you know, these are some key factors that we've always known about, and these are key factors that when we put onto a website, we get them up there. Now, in the industries that I deal in, putting up, well, let's take the transportation industry, for example. And it was back in 2008. And I came from the transportation software business, and there wasn't a single, you know, this was a pretty big industry. There was about $20 million a year in software that was sold just in the United States alone, and by the company I was working for. And the market for itself was 70 or 80 million. And so with about 10 different players in the marketplace, not one of them had an online solution that allowed for their prospect to go and get a price. And I found it really, really bizarre. Could you excuse me for 1 second, please? And I found it really, really bizarre that you just couldn't get a price for it. Now, for the transportation industry, there was just so many different factors that were involved. You couldn't just list prices onto a website. You needed some sort of interface that required the size of the box, how quickly it's transported, the type of vehicle that was involved, whether it was intercity or interstate or going across the country. And we had to develop our own. We developed a tool that went in and allowed for this price, but the database was there. The pricing engine was already there in the back end. And we pushed for that, spent a lot of money to be able to get this solution out. And once that solution was out, guess what all the other software companies started to do? Well, it's because it was something that was important for people to get. Now, if you're dealing with dentists, well, they don't have a price guide. You know, dentist websites are not gonna go and list prices unless they have certain specials. You know, a $99 teeth whitening special, let's say, or something of that sort. So again, I'm actually going through writing the autoresponder sequence right now for our free marketing course. And one thing that people tend to miss far too often in the world of search engine optimization that I predicate so heavily is the fact that SEO by definition is the same definition as marketing. And one of the very first steps that we do in marketing is what? Understanding our audience. The better you can understand your audience, the more information you have on your audience, the better you can deliver the content that's relevant for them. And so a small business, for example, a dentist location, if they're focused in on clients that have insurance and are there for maintenance and pain relief as opposed to cosmetic, well, they're more likely not going to demonstrate pricing because of the buying behavior of their audience. But a dentist that's a cosmetic dentist, on the other hand, is not covered under insurance, is not typically dealing with children or pediatrics. It's dealing with an industry that, just like the makeup industry, it makes somebody look better and feel better about themselves. But it's a luxury purchase now. It's not a necessity. And that changes the whole marketing game. That changes the positioning and the messaging that's going to be involved on that website. And therefore, price is going to be an important factor that is demonstrated and shown on there. So even before I get into some of the data on this study from Bright Local, a lot of it is intuition. And if you haven't been through, whether you're an LMS student or not, go through the Marketing Fundamentals course and watch the video on customer segmentation and watch the video on online marketing at the very, very least. There's probably 40 minutes of content between the two of those videos. And it's just going to give you further insight into understanding your audience. Now, one of the first pieces of information that Bright Local has given us is attitudes towards local business websites. And I thought there was a couple of neat things in here. They gave 4 different choices. I remember back in college or university, went through a variety of different statistical analysis classes. And we were taught on different ways to create surveys. And right off the bat, I can tell that there's major holes in this survey. So it's I really got to take a lot of the information with a grain of salt. I'm going to try to decipher some of that. But when asked the question to consumers, your attitudes towards a local business website, your choices are, I think that a clear website is going to give local business more credibility. I'm more likely to contact a local business if they have a website. It doesn't make a difference to me if they have a website or not, or a bad or ugly website can really put me off. And what I did find interesting, that only 5% of the people, now remember, this is across the board of 100, I could agree with 2 or 3 of these choices, so I've got to make one choice. You don't want to ask questions of that sense. This should have been 4 separate questions and gauge perhaps on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. How much are you put off by a bad or an ugly website? But between the 2 choices of a business having a bad website and a business not having a website, 32% or 1 in 3 people say that doesn't influence their ability to do business with that local business. That's a big deal. And, it kind of comes back to, well, I could take one of my clients, for example. We begun to have a little bit of trouble in ranking them, and we told them that we can rank them without a website. Well, back in the day, these are things that could be done, but your website is your biggest citation. And so Google puts a lot of emphasis on a business having a website. If the truth is that a third of consumers don't care about a business having a website or not, Google wouldn't put that big emphasis on it. So there is a little bit of a disconnect in that information. But what's important to recognize is that a website doesn't need to be perfect. Consumers generally aren't establishing their perception of a business based off of its website. There's components on a website that are very relevant. But yet a third of consumers also said, I am more likely to contact a business if they have a website. Well, now we're talking about 66% or 65% of the entire population that you are going to improve your conversion by having a website. And then finally, the remaining third say that I think a clear and a smart website gives a local business more credibility. What credibility essentially means to the respondents is also completely up in the air, and there's a lot of questions with that. Now, they were also listing what is some of the most important information on a local business website. Items like a list of products or your price list, the phone number, the physical address, operating hours, the company information, contact information, company images, maps and directions. And the respondents were able to choose one. Again, a lot of these probably should have had a rating scale on them. But I just listed them to you in order of importance. Really, it's pretty much across the board. Company images was rated at 3% at the low end, and a list of products was rated at 12% at the high end. However, we could talk about images here, and we could talk about conversion, and we could talk about building relationships. What do they mean by company images? Do they mean just stock photography? Do they mean just images that are up there? Or are these images of the business owner, the employees that are involved, of the location itself? And I can make very, very strong arguments that having professionally done high quality images of the people that are involved, because a business revolves around people. I would make a very, very strong argument that that does have a major impact as well. Now, this last finding that I'm going to talk about to our audience is probably the most important finding. And it's which factors that make you want to use a local business the most. Well, the key word being local should let you know that that's the most, number one, that's the biggest factor. I mean, I'm not going to drive 20 kilometers to go visit a dentist. Let's face it. So businesses do have certain service areas. And in the LMS Facebook group, as well as there was discussion, as I mentioned with Eve, in regards to geolocation and service area size. And understand that, again, there's no standards here, because service area is dependent first off of geography. Think of being downtown Manhattan and the saturation rate of chiropractors within a one-block area versus the saturation rate of chiropractors up in the northwest suburbs of Minneapolis. Makes a big difference. So the service area is also based off of, not just off of geographical location, but the service area is also based off of the industry that's involved. And a courier, for example, is going to service all of Chicagoland. Well, Chicagoland, it's like 350 miles to drive around all the suburbs. It's a big area versus Flint, Michigan. So service area is also based off of industry and the And I could take my local chiropractor that I go see, and his service area to the east extends about 1.5 miles, but to the west is probably 6 or 7 miles. The reason being is just that we happen to have a river that splits this area, and that river defines where a lot of people tend to do business, because there's only so many places to cross that river. People have got to go out of the way. So you could understand that in the world of understanding the customer audience, to create content and create information on a website is highly relevant. Know your marketing. Know what's going on with that. Some of the other information is clear contact details. I'd like to challenge somebody to give me unclear contact details. But please, on a contact us page, for example, please don't fill the whole page up above the fold with a form to be emailed. That's the last thing that people want to do and see. Testimonials was also very relevant. Information that's on there. Local phone number. Even fast website speed was actually a factor. Now, I could talk about fast website speed, and that's only relevant. I remember looking at another study recently in the last couple of days that anybody above the age of 34 is a lot less likely and a lot more patient when it comes to slow loading websites. The younger generation, on the other hand, is not very tolerable for that. Still, page loading speed is important to Google because it's important to their audience. So make sure your websites that you create are, I mean, don't put big images on there. I'm so frustrated when I get developers that do that. Why? The image is only 3 inches by 3 inches on a screen. Well, why do you have to have a 250K image that's loading up? It's just sloppy. All right, move on a little bit here. Gosh, I'm really feeling dehydrated today. Give me 1 second again here. Must be something in the weather. I don't know. I've been drinking a lot of water lately. I learned that drinking 2 glasses of water when you wake up, for a lot of different reasons. I probably have to read a lot more to really get into it. But 2 glasses of water in the morning is key. And I'll tell you what. Yeah, I like my coffee and all, but it just makes a world of a difference for me. And water, I mean, what did I read today about water? It was really kind of neat that if you took all the molecules, oh, there's my dog going, she's in the office with me, she travels with me everywhere. If you took all the molecules in a glass of water, there are more molecules in the glass of water than all the glasses of water in all the bodies of water on the entire planet. And that it is scientifically proven that we have molecules of water inside of us. We're made up 70% of water, that have been a part of every single human being in existence. Yeah, I could get a little bit philosophical right now about all of that and how, you know, how things are ultimately connected. But I surely don't want to be spilling my philosophical views on a business business call. But let's just say that water is critically important, and with all the soft drinks that exist out there today, we weren't designed to process all of that stuff. We've forgotten about the importance of water, and water's just going to make us that much more productive, that much more conscious and clear. And I just wish it's, you know, it hadn't taken me 38 years to really figure that out. But yeah, water. But it's like chiropractic adjustment or brushing your teeth. Once you start, you really can't stop, and you got to keep it up, or the implications. It's like eating too. You know, I used to feel pretty shitty after eating some fast food, but the fact that, you know, I cook foods at home that have no GMOs, is all organic, locally grown, nitrate free. Not a lot of the meats I have aren't processed and whatnot. You feel a lot better inside, and then I go back and then I try to have some fast food, and I feel even worse than I did before. It's all in perspective, so it's kind of a catch-22. But all right, back to some discussion. Yellow Pages. Yellow Pages what? Who's Yellow Pages? You remember those days we used to get phone books and have to pick a book out and go and look, and then we had all the businesses that were named A1 Auto, AA1 Auto, A Auto. You know, anybody that's older than 25 will definitely understand what I'm talking about, but not the younger generation. Local is pretty big. You know, let's face it, there's 23 million small businesses in the United States that make up roughly 80% of the gross domestic product in this country. The United States is, I mean, the American dream is to have a small business and make it grow and have, you know, share in the freedoms. And by the way, it's not so much of a dream. Sometimes it's a nightmare. But I wouldn't go back. And these businesses used to spend massive amounts of money in Yellow Pages. To be able to get, for a small business to put an ad in Yellow Pages was not cheap. You could easily spend $1,500 a month. A month, $1,500 a month to get a full page ad in some of these. It was even some more in some cases. And then, you know, in Canada, you just had one Yellow Pages for each province. And here down in the United States, there's quite a few different. There was the Yellow Book and Yellow Pages and a whole variety of different solutions that are out there. And obviously that's changed with local. You know, last year we were talking about Facebook getting into local search. What have they done with that? I bet there's not a single person that ever listens to any one of these calls that does not have a Facebook account or doesn't utilize Facebook at least on a weekly basis. They've got 1.2 billion users. It's the biggest collection of users of any website that's out there. It's incredible, but they haven't been able to do anything with local. On the other hand, Google has not been able to crack the Facebook code, but they are huge in local. It's just amazing how some of these big companies, they stumble into their successes. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page, Sergey, they came out and they did something really good and built around that. Google being search and Facebook being social. Facebook quickly put out MySpace, and it wasn't because of money. It wasn't because of politics. It was merely because of a good product and word of mouth. Google is no different. They didn't advertise back in 1999 and 2000, 1998. Google became Google because it was a good search engine, and they ultimately did it well. And now they're, these companies are all trying to chase the money. And I was taught in '08 by a mentor of mine, chase your passion and the money will follow. Well, the moment that, this is a perfect example of that on a large scale. That a lot of these companies are trying to chase the money in different areas after veering from their passions and failing at it. Well, Yellow Pages, they're not sure who they are. They deal with consumers, and they don't really know where they should be positioning themselves. They've got some different strategies that are out there, but they've now come back. What was it? Last year, they had made announcements that they were getting away from dealing with consumers directly, and now they're coming back and saying we want to deal directly with Google, compete against Google. Who's the second biggest local player out there in the marketplace? Yelp. And speaking of Yelp, I don't know why oh yeah, I do have that. I just skipped over. I'll get to it then. You've got Google and Yelp, and Apple is making a pretty big push at it with their maps. Apple has got the mobile distribution, and over 50% of consumers now that are making purchases at local businesses have found that local business through mobile. Mobile's huge. Remember back in the day, 2009, 2010, when mobile was trying to position itself as, oh, well, you got mobile marketing as a solution. What's mobile marketing? Why is mobile an entity of its own? It's not. There really should not be mobile marketing experts that are out there. Because what's going to happen when, I was reading some studies about television viewership and how people that are streaming Netflix and Hulu over these different devices, the Rokus of the worlds and the desk, I don't even know what you call them, the television top internet connected devices. I don't know. That's all I use at home now. But that percentage is growing. It's still very, very small. I think around 10 or 15%. I think it was 13% of Netflix users stream over these boxes to the TV. But that's the largest segment. The largest growing segment, excuse me. The largest segment is mobile devices. The next is desktop or laptop computers. So, I know I'm veering way off track, but I'm just trying to understand consumer behavior and trying to establish where that might be going in the next 5 years. Well, what was it? Of those viewers that are watching it on a television, 80% or somewhere high around, was a high number, also have a handheld mobile device with them that they're utilizing. So that tells me right away that I've got a lot more distractions in the living room and the bedroom now when television commercials come on. Well, TV advertising obviously is dying. Google got into it and then got out of it, and now they're much more into direct advertising. And so these companies have got to be thinking about this and trying to, what am I trying to say here? Because we were talking about Yellow Pages, and they are just so far behind the mark, in my opinion, that they're merely trying to play catch up with Google and Yelp, and Yelp, on the other hand, has got the applications out there. When are these local applications going to start coming into our television sets and our living rooms? Because I know that I'm sitting there and something comes up and I want to go and check it out. What do? Well, I hate my cell phone. I am not a cell phone user. That 4-inch or that 5-inch screen, forget about it. Forget about texting me. I will go and jump on my computer and text you back. Let's face it. But my laptop is not always around. And sometimes I'm lazy and I don't want to have to get up and go and search. So I can see with the television display why Netflix is doing well with it, and Google with their YouTube is massive, and with a lot of the smart televisions that are coming out right now, our ability to move around. And I also think about items like, okay, you know, does anybody have any children with Xbox and the Connect system and hand gestures and the way that it's recognizing its different hand gestures? Well, our hands are going to be the remote controls of these devices. And when we're wanting to look for certain things, here we're talking about on this call of local, that display is going to be a game changer. That big display, we all tend to have big TVs in our homes now. It's not uncommon to go out and get a 55-inch television that's got super high resolution. And so on that note about local, finally, how Yahoo, you know, with Marissa, she's the new CEO. She's been there for over a year now, and she's made some major changes at Yahoo. And they just signed a deal with Yahoo to integrate Yelp into their search results. Remember, Bing also has this, so that's only going to further springboard the importance that Yelp has. But you see what's happening here when we start, I should probably create, or if somebody has ever seen anything like this, the partnerships and collaborations of, I got to write this down. I don't think this exists. This would be a good piece to research. The partnerships and collaborations of all the local players that are really trying to get out there. But what it really seems and what I can visualize in my head is it's Google against everyone. You know, Bing has got their relationships with Facebook and et cetera, et cetera. All right, so that's going to come to the conclusion of this week's update. I'm going to come back and just share with you a local internet marketing agency tip and what's working right now in my agency. This one I think is gold, guys. Good enough to be able to put on a webinar for it at some point in time. And I want you to listen closely. So just give me 30 seconds and I'll be right back.
Thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week. So if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for our free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.